Blanket Drive. All you have to do is drop off new or clean, gently used winter coats and blankets in the KBLA lobby during business hours. Now through December 20th, all of the coats and blankets will be donated to unsheltered individuals and families experiencing houselessness. Simply bring your donation to 4434 Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles, near Vernon Avenue, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays. That's 4434 Crenshaw in historic Leimert Park. During the holidays and every day, let's remember, we keep us safe. We keep us warm. We are the safety net, and together we can cover the unsheltered. Get caught up in the spirit of the season, the spirit of love. Make a difference with your friends at KBLA Talk 1580.
Listen up, you can be anything in the world, and God we trust. An architect, doctor, maybe an actress, but nothing comes easy, it takes much practice. Like, I met a woman who's becoming a star. She was very beautiful, leaving people in awe, singing songs Lena Horne, but the younger version. Hung with the wrong person, got her strung on that. Sniffing up drugs, all in her nose. Could've died so young, now looks ugly and old. No fun, cause now when she reaches for hugs, people hold their breath, cause she smells of corrosion and death. Watch the company you keep and the crowd you bring, cause they came to do drugs and you came to sing. So if you're gonna be the best, I'ma tell you how. Put your hand in the air and take the vow. I know I can. I know I can.
I'm Tavis, Smiley. Glad to have you with us in this hour of our program today. Is STEM education failing people and children of color in particular? If so, how can schools create a culturally relevant curriculum for STEM education? And are there fun science, tech, engineering, and or math projects you can do with your children during the holidays? I am pleased to welcome to this program former NASA engineer and STEM educator, Dr. Nehemiah Mabery. Dr. Mabery, how are you today, sir?
Tavis, I am great. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a great honor to have you on the program. Thank you for the time. A lot to talk about, and let's just jump right in. First of all, give me your backstory. Your backstory in terms of NASA. I'm always fascinated by black people who hang out at NASA, and particularly those who are either astronauts or engineers or both. But again, I'm fascinated by our people inside that massive operation. Talk to me about your backstory at NASA.
Absolutely. So I'm from the southeast United States, born in Georgia, came up in Alabama, wasn't aware of what engineering was until around high school. Mm-hmm. My father introduced it to me as a potential career field junior year in high school, and it just so happened that it coincided with this summer high school research apprenticeship program that one of the NASA bases, Marshall Space Flight Center there in Huntsville, Alabama, was having. Mm-hmm. And at the time, again, not really knowing what it was, I signed up for it, had the opportunity to go out there in the summer. Loved it, Tavis. Loved it. Loved it so much that the following year, my senior in high school year, I volunteered. I said, hey, if you all have me back, let me come out and just work in the lab, figure things out. Sure enough, that led to opportunities to apply for other things. And, 8+ years later, I was still there doing research in various areas of structural health monitoring, which is monitoring sort of defects in some of the space vehicles, combustion properties, determining, the amount of thrust that comes from different chemical combinations and things of that sort. And so I kind of had a varied career there. It was phenomenal. Had an opportunity to also be mentored, Tavis, by another brother, a physicist who was a vet there at NASA, who to this day I still appreciate, Dr. Banks. And that was really my start. And, if you're going to start in engineering, it's so great to have NASA as that first resume item that I'm still grateful for today.
No question about that. Tell me more about your father. I ask in part because, as this audience knows, I'm always curious about the backstory. And when you share with me as a black man that your father in your junior year of high school suggested you take a look at this perhaps as a career path, that grabbed me. One, because we know the rub, at least, or at least the line, that we're scared of math, that we're scared of engineering, that we're scared of STEM. black people, that is. But for your father to suggest this to you when he did, tell me about your dad and what you think made him suggest that to you.
Tavis, I'm so glad you asked about that because, my dad has always been an aspirational person. He was always one who, had entrepreneurial ideas and a lot of things. He was really encouraging. And for a lot of people, it may be various people in your lives. But for me, at an early age, I was always kind of like, okay, yeah, whatever, Dad, I'm not really interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
Until this particular recommendation came along when he asked me, what I wanted to be when I grew up, that infamous question about we always ask young people.
Sure.
Well, after I went out and got into this, I discovered that my father actually started the engineering program himself.
Oh.
When he was able to attend the HBCU in Atlanta, Georgia, known as Morris Brown College.
Mm-hmm.
Some people may have heard of that.
Sure.
That had a dual degree program with Georgia Tech. Well, he never went on to the engineering component at the time. And so when I had an opportunity to do this, sure enough, in many ways, I think that also sort of reignited a passion in him. He knew that, I had done decent in math. You hear, as you just said, people say, I don't like math, I don't like science. Well, I was saying those things too, but he was sort of there to say, listen, you actually aren't doing as bad as you think you're doing in this field. You're not performing as low, so you don't need to say you don't like it. And I really felt like that sort of confirmed me switching from saying, all right, I hate it, I don't like it, to wait a minute, I can do this. And here's the thing I'd like to share as well, Tavis, that's important. When I went on to pursue engineering in college, my father actually went back to school as well.
Oh.
I attended Oakwood University, HBCU in Huntsville, Alabama, then the University of Alabama, Huntsville. He enrolled in Alabama A&M University, mechanical engineering, and eventually completed his mechanical engineering that he didn't get to finish back when he was in school. So it's really a story that I think promotes sort of the semiotic nature. Also, the value of having people that you can relate to aspire and achieve something that you yourself aspire towards. So I'm really glad you asked about that, but I've always thought about that story fondly.
I'm glad you shared that. It is the case with every question that comes out of my mouth. I never know I shouldn't say I never know. Sometimes I do know. I think of the Darden rule, the Darden dilemma that many recall from the O.J. Simpson case when Christopher Darden asked O.J. to put that glove on. You all recall all the conversation thereafter when O.J. was struggling to get that glove on his hand. What we learned from that is that you never ask a question in a courtroom to which you do not know the answer. Asking somebody to try on a glove that you don't know is going to fit is going to prejudice that jury in ways that Christopher Darden, I'm sure, still regrets all these years later. You don't ask a question without knowing the answer. Sometimes I know the answer that's coming. Most times I do not. And it's when I don't know the answer and I get a response like that I just get all warm and fuzzy on the inside. I did not know. I hear that story about his father, that his father, too, went back to school. That's an amazing way to start this conversation. He mentioned Oakwood. I want to talk about that as well when we come forward. It's going to be a great hour with Dr. Nehemiah Mabery on Tavis Smiley.
Generous listening. Charitable listening. It's why everybody wants to talk to Tavis. The conversation continues when we come forward.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
I was so excited when I heard this sandwich was back. What's up? This is Mike.
And this is Celia.
And a little thing we love about the Chick-fil-A Honey Pepper Pimento Chicken Sandwich
is the symphony of flavors. You can always count on that crispy, tender, juicy chicken. It's so good.
My favorite part is the pimento cheese. Topped off with the honey, it all comes together perfectly. I like the original.
I like the spicy chicken fillet. But either way,
you're getting a winner.
The Chick-fil-A Honey Pepper Pimento Chicken Sandwich is back with a bite. Try it with the original or spicy filet, now for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
1 in 3 children born today will get diabetes. This sad prediction by the Centers for Disease Control will come true if millions of Americans don't improve their lifestyles, especially by changing what they eat, how much they eat, and how active they are every day. Every 23 seconds, another American gets diabetes. Stop diabetes before it starts. To learn more, contact the American Diabetes Association or download our free diabetes education programs at learningaboutdiabetes.org.
The revolution will not be televised.
This is Brother Cornell West. My dear brothers and sisters, I'm full of joy and delight to announce that I'm joining the precious family at KBLA Talk 1580, founded and led by my dear, dear brother Tavis Smiley himself. Yes, the name of the show is Truth Time, and I'll be working with the inimitable Nina Turner out of Cleveland, Ohio, sister of great vision, and we will be on weekdays at 12 noon. We will be following Brother Tavis Smiley's show. We will begin Monday, January the 6th. That's right, Monday, January the 6th. Get ready for a different kind of insurrection. We coming with Martin Luther King Jr. and Fannie Lou Hamer and Curtis Mayfield and Aretha Franklin, and gonna add a little Gil Scott-Heron too, as Nina Simone sits at the center. That's right.
The revolution will be live.
That's what we gonna do. Please come with us on this fantastic voyage.
The revolution will put you in the driver's seat. Driver's seat.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park,
Los Angeles, California.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Dr. Nehemiah Mabery, former NASA engineer and STEM educator, as we talk in this hour about whether or not STEM is failing people, and in particular children of color, and what to do about that. We'll get to that part of the story as we move forward. But I started this hour asking Dr. Mabery to tell me about his time at NASA, and he went into a wonderful response about how he got to NASA in the first place, which included a story about his father. And I love hearing those stories. I lost my father earlier this year, and so I've always loved fathers, but I'm holding on to this story even more so now, given what has transpired in my life in this year. So here's my question. When you learn that your father started the engineering program himself years earlier in his life and didn't get a chance to complete it, and now in your junior year he recommends this to you as a potential career path, I'm seeing and hearing the dreams of our fathers. It's so clear, the dreams of our fathers, and that's a beautiful thing. So to that point, when you finally landed, I'm just jumping ahead, I'll come back, but when you finally landed at NASA as an engineer, what did your father say?
Oh, man, he was proud and still very much proud. And by the way, condolences, of course, hearing of your father. But
thank you, sir.
My dad, and I'm going to tell you, he has always been one who wanted us to see our potential. Mm-hmm. He's always been one who wanted us to know that there is nothing too hard and that we have what it takes to figure it out. And so here I am at NASA, and here's the thing, and this is relevant to, our community in these spaces. Oftentimes, we could look to our left and our right when we get in the room, and because we don't see many people that look like us, we begin to question our own validity in the room. Mm-hmm. So even though I'm at NASA, right, even though I got accepted into the program, just the lack of representation in places can sometimes cause a self-doubt, or as some people may have phrased it, maybe even imposter syndrome and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. But what helped me, Tavis, is having sort of a home base, literally and figuratively, with people like my dad, people like Dr. Banks, who I mentioned, who was also a physicist there, who ultimately sort of established, reconfirmed, developed, nurtured, and affirmed, the ability that even in myself I didn't quite see yet. Yeah. You know what I mean? Even though I hadn't quite, because here's what happens. You get into these programs, you start off slow. There's a learning curve for everyone. And what happens is in that learning curve, sometimes we can interpret that as in we're not fit. But no, that's not quite the case. In fact, you just need to stay with it. And then sure enough, I, in my case, and others as they will experience, overcome that curve. And I attribute the ability to stay with it to folks like my father and mentors like that.
You mentioned Oakwood, so just give me a moment here, a moment of personal privilege. Whenever I hear the word Oakwood, my mind goes to one particular place, two places, in fact. Oakwood is an amazing school. I've had the honor of being there before. But when I think of Oakwood, I think of Cheryl Flowers. And for those who know anything about my backstory, you know that Cheryl Flowers was my longtime radio producer long before this iteration of my radio career when I was on NPR as the first African American in the history of this country to ever have his own show every day on NPR, a signature show. I was the first African American to do that, and I say that in part because I'm still all these years later, bothered by the fact that for all of since NPR was established under the Johnson administration, black folk have been paying taxes, of course, and those tax dollars go to support public media, including NPR and PBS. And for all the years of us paying our taxes, we had never had an African American to host his own show every day on NPR. The same was true when I went to PBS. We'd never had an African American host his own show every day on PBS. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity to have been the first on NPR and PBS to host his own weekday signature show. But the point is that we've been paying taxes all these years, and they couldn't get around to allowing one of us to be in that space. When I got in the space at NPR, I looked all over the country to try to find an African American to be the executive producer of my show. I figured if I was going to get inside the room, I was going to take some Negroes with me. So I started looking for somebody black to be the exec producer of my show. We couldn't find anybody, and we searched and we searched and we searched. And finally, we found a sister out of Oakland who had gone to Oakwood. Her name was Cheryl Flowers, and for all the years I was at NPR, Cheryl Flowers was my executive producer, and that's such a huge part of my career. Cheryl passed away over a decade ago now, passed away at the age of 42 from breast cancer. And so just in October of this year, we had her doctor back on this program, connecting dots for my listeners. Dr. Olapade out of Chicago was on this program in October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, talking about the progress we've made on triple negative, which is the cancer that took Cheryl out at the age of 42. And now here we are, fast forward all these years later. And for those who are in the L.A. area, you have seen the news. And for those around the country, you've seen the news that one of my colleagues here on my home station, Robin Aers, passed away last week at the age of 45. So Cheryl leaves me at 42. Robin leaves us at 45, not from breast cancer, but it's been a rough week around here. And so when you mentioned Oakwood, my mind went to Cheryl Flowers. If you're ever in L.A. and come by this building where I'm sitting right now, the Smiley building on Crenshaw, where this radio station is housed, both on the front of our building and on the back, you will see a plaque dedicated to Cheryl. And as far as I'm concerned, I sit every day in the Cheryl Flowers radio studios. And so a shout out to Oakwood, where Cheryl Flowers went to school. Yeah. And for those of you who love Take Six went to Oakwood. A lot of great graduates out of Oakwood, including Nehemiah Mabery and others who I've just mentioned. But it's a great school, and I just wanted to take that moment because whenever somebody says Oakwood, my heart just drops, and I go right back to Cheryl all those years ago. So thank you for mentioning Oakwood. Yeah. Let me, having said that, I asked about your father and the role he played in this process, and I want to ask what you make now when you look back on this. And I'll get to Dr. Banks here in a second because I love these stories of mentoring. But take me back to your junior year when your father suggests this to you. I'm just fascinated that your father introduces you to something that late in your high school tenure, and you get turned on by it so much that it becomes your career. And again, years later, you end up at NASA. But the fact that your father suggested that so late in your high school tenure, and that you were turned on by it, fascinates me.
It's really interesting too, because I talk to a lot of students today. I do a lot of outreach, a lot of keynotes, a lot of, even teaching. And I see these programs that exist today that I think are great, that introduce STEM to students in elementary school. And my daughter even went to a pre-K school that had, lab coats, and they were doing things. And I'm like, man, this is phenomenal, because I didn't have that introduction as young, right? And these programs didn't exist. But I think it's also on the other end inspiring to know that, it's never too late, right? In some cases, we feel like we may have missed those early windows because there is an advantage of early exposure. But even if, there is still value to attain later on. And just to connect that even more to things I spoke about earlier, I think, we know that, life, a lot of times seeds are planted, and then later on you see the harvest.
That's right. That's right.
And so when I think about the experience I had, having that seed planted there in that summer high school program, I told you I went on and stayed at NASA for about 8 years. towards the end of that time at NASA, I decided to, at the encouragement of Dr. Banks at this point, go for my PhD, go after a doctorate degree in engineering. Well, I have you know that as I was considering graduate school, I run into a lady in sort of the cafeteria they had at the base at that NASA installation there, Marshall, who was actually a part of the administration for that high school program, my very first year. And she tells me, hey, don't you know NASA has a program where we can help you get a fellowship for your PhD, for your graduate degree? And sure enough, having that reconnection with her from that very first summer at NASA led me on to pursue a structural engineering and mechanics PhD, and what brought me to North Carolina State, where I currently reside in the state.
The Lord, Lord, the way these dots, I'm tongue-tied now. I'm fascinated by the way these dots connect, not just in your life, but in my life, but anybody listening right now. If you look back over your life, you'll be fascinated by the ways that these dots connect and the way that things happen. It's always fascinating for me. Since you referenced him a couple times now, and again, I love these stories of mentoring. Tell me about Dr. Banks.
Oh man, so Dr. Banks, and you're asking all the great questions, and I'd be remiss if I would say this. I wish I had said it at the onset. I have grown up listening to several powerful conversations about our culture being led by your voice, Tavis, and so I just want to tell you that I'm honored to even be in this conversation with you at this time.
You're very kind.
So I just want to
Thank
make sure
sir.
I get that in.
No, I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. But Dr. Banks, and here's the thing: at Oakwood is a private Christian school. They have a motto called "Enter to learn, depart to serve," which at the end of the day implies that we're not getting our degrees, our training, our education, or even our careers simply for ourselves, but we have been called to serve, and there's a ministry involved, and regardless of what your career is, right? That being said, as I began to kind of internalize that, Dr. Banks became my mentor probably halfway through my time at NASA. And would you know, Tavis, that he was a NASA physicist 40 hours a week full-time, and he was the pastor of a church on Sundays.
Wow.
This is a minister right now. Shout out to Dr. Banks. If he in some way is listening to this, Pastor Banks / Dr. Banks, right, was my mentor who really began to speak to me as if I was going to be a doctor someday as well. In fact, he would call me Dr. Mabery when I had no plans of getting a PhD. He would allow me to go into his lab. He had a physics lab where we did a lot of optics and things of that nature, and just kind of play and tinker with a lot of the equipment there. And then ultimately, he was able to connect me with someone who went on to be one of my PhD advisors here in North Carolina. At a conference he allowed me to attend with him for the first time during my time at NASA. And again, he really instilled with me not only the purpose in this field of STEM that led to me getting this doctorate degree, but he helped me to understand that even in this field that one can see as objective, logical, straightforward, 1 + 1 = 2, that kind of thing, there is still a serving, there is still a ministry that is sort of woven through the work that we do. And so I just want to say that part of his fruit of him doing that was really all that I'm currently doing now as a PhD credentialed professional engineer.
No, I love that motto at Oakwood: enter to learn, depart to serve. Enter to learn, depart to serve. I'm curious as to how, and I'm pausing because I'm thinking of your sharing that Dr. Banks was both a physicist, is both a physicist and a pastor of a church. I think he'd appreciate this. One of my favorite scriptures reminds us, encourages us indeed, to call things that are not as though they were. Sometimes in our lives, we have to call things that are not as though they were. For those who may not be spiritual, you may call it manifesting, but it's the same thing. We call things that are not as though they were. And when we do that and we believe in what we are calling forth, that stuff can happen. So I'm curious as to how it made you feel when Dr. Banks was calling you Dr. Mabery when you weren't even thinking of getting a PhD.
Yeah. It normalized it for me. And this is, and we may talk a little bit about media in a little bit, and I love the story you shared about you being the first African-American to lead its own show on NPR. But there was a normalization that took place that often, and I found in that case for me, made it less of a intimidating prospect.
Mm-hmm.
So if I hear Dr. Mabery over and over again, then all of a sudden the process of eventually becoming literally credentialed as a Dr. Mabery was not something foreign to me. Why? Because as he already said, it was called that wasn't as though it was prior to that. And I just really think the combination of seeing him operate as a doctor, him speak to me, you know, even though I was still an undergrad student when we first met, made it sort of something that I could see myself. Because I like to say one of the things I share with others is that you have to see it before you see it. You have to know it before you know it. So you can have it even before you have it. And that is ultimately what you hang on to when I got here to North Carolina State University, working on experiments that are failing, not failing as they're supposed to, but not going the way they're supposed to, taking classes, right, that are more difficult than I thought, running out of money in grad school. And if anybody's been to grad school, you know that's not your financial pinnacle by any means, right? Those struggles that I had eventually in the process of pursuing a doctorate was basically able to be endured because I had already seen it before I seen it. I was able to, as you already said, sort of visualize, you know, the walking across the stage being hooded.
That's right.
And I think that started by the seeds that Dr. Banks planted, by the representation that he was just in a space such as NASA. And, you know, that's what carried me through.
I love that. See it before you see it, know it before you know it, and have it before you have it. In 30 quick seconds here, when you became Dr. Mabery, what did Dr. Banks say?
Let me tell you something. Dr. Banks drove from Huntsville, Alabama, all the way to Raleigh, North Carolina, and attended my graduation ceremony.
Wow.
Immediately after, we took pictures. I still have those pictures to this day. And he got back in the car, him and his wife, and drove back 9+ hours to Huntsville, Alabama. Man, that Dr. Banks, thank you. Tavis, thank you for letting me share the story.
No, man.
He saw it before he saw it.
You about to make me cry up in here, man. Dr. Banks is a bad brother. I just love hearing these stories of black people mentoring black people supporting black people loving on black people. And I'm loving on Dr. Nehemiah Mabery right about now on Tavis Smiley.
Why does Tavis say, when we come forward?
Because he's not going back.
And you don't have to go back either. Forward ever, backward never. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Alex Murdaugh is appealing his double murder conviction, seeking a new trial for the 2021 murders of his wife and son. His lawyers argue the jury was prejudiced by irrelevant financial crime information and improper influence from a court clerk. Secretary of State Antony Blinken testifies before a House committee on the Afghanistan withdrawal. This follows a vote to hold him in contempt of Congress. Chairman Michael McCall emphasized the importance of Blinken's testimony for future legislation. The government is ordering national milk supply tests for bird flu to track the virus's spread. Dr. Peter Hotez notes over 700 dairy herds are affected and stresses pasteurization kills the virus, making raw milk risky. And the NFL announced it will play a regular season game in Berlin, Germany next year, marking the first time in the city's history. The league has previously played in Munich and Frankfurt since 2022. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Imagine a photograph of your favorite place in California. Then right in the middle of it, one piece of litter. Litter has no place in our lives, not one piece. Together, let's change that. Clean California. Zero litter is the goal. CleanCA.com.
Is this the
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Something is going on with LeBron. He was given an excused absence from Wednesday's practice and film session. Lakers coach J.J. Redick said LeBron is taking some time away from the team. LeBron has not been with the team since Sunday's win over Portland. He sat out that game with a sore left foot. Redick is uncertain if LeBron will be with the Lakers for Friday's game at Minnesota. It looks like there's been a change in thinking about Bronny James playing road games in the G League with the South Bay Lakers. LeBron's son will be with South Bay for tonight's game in Tempe, Arizona against the Valley Suns. This will be Bronny's first road game with South Bay. Crucial game for the Rams tonight at San Francisco. The Rams need a win to stay in contention in the NFC West. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford is going for his fifth straight game without an interception. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Linking social justice and climate justice all year long.
We're unapologetically progressive.
KBLA Talk 1580. On behalf of her precious family, it is with profound sadness that KBLA Talk 1580 announces the passing of our beloved colleague, Robin Aers, on Thursday, December 5th. Robin was a bright light. You could see her radiant smile through the radio. We all respected her immense talent, loved her jovial spirit, celebrated her love of family, and honored her faith in God. Our thoughts and prayers are with Robin's entire family, most especially her husband Rob and her twin daughters Brooklyn and Madison. We ask you to join us in praying for the Aers family as they navigate the difficult days ahead. In her honor, all this week, we're broadcasting the best of the Rob Report on KBLA Talk 1580.
So this new dose is, nope, that's not it. The price is nowhere to be found.
Mr. Green? Hi, it's all good. We've got this.
This is not just help from a Walgreens pharmacist.
Oh, new prescriptions. Cool. Let me check to see if these are the lowest cost options covered by your Medicare plan.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
This is someone supporting you every step of the way. Chat with a pharmacist today to find help saving. This is the human kind of help. Walgreens.
Lowe's knows how to save you time and money. Order what you need by 2 p.m. to get it delivered same day. Valid on eligible in-stock orders and select zip codes for same-day delivery. Subject to driver availability. Fees vary based on purchase. More terms apply. See Lowe's.com/same-day delivery for details.
Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
Hi, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been hearing me guest host here on KBLA Talk 1580, and I'm having a blast. But I'm excited about joining the official lineup here at KBLA Talk 1580 starting Monday, January 6th at 1 p.m. Start your day with First Things First and Dominique DePrima at 6 a.m. Check out Tavis Smiley at 9 a.m. Tune into Truth Time with Dr. Cornell West and Nina Turner at 12 noon, and then tap in with me on The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show at 1 p.m. weekdays. I served 17 years in the U.S. Congress, and I can tell you it's going to be a rough 4 years, so let's navigate this journey together. It's The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, starting Monday, January 6th at 1 p.m. on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Somebody who declares he's got it made. He won't admit it, but it's just a masquerade. He's a modern day deceiver with a case of falsehood fever. What a shame. It's a game.
And then there's dear old sister Sarah, ain't she sweet? Oh yes she is. She gets the word, next thing you know it's in the street. By the time it's been repeated, all the truth has been deleted. Oh, what a shame. Another game. It seems like everything we hear is just a tale, but I've got something that will never ever fail. It's called love. Spread love. Oh
Thought I'd give you a little Take Six since we talked about Oakwood and where Take Six all met and came together and formed their group. So I was with Stevie Wonder one day years ago. And I've even forgotten where we were, but Stevie and I were together somewhere. We were sitting around talking, and Stevie said, "I want you to hear something." And he uses his machine, sets it up, hands me his headphones. I put them on. He said, "Check this out." And Stevie played this song for me. It hadn't come out yet, but he was already tapped in to Take Six. And I said, "Stevie, who is this?" So I actually heard this thing before it dropped because Stevie let me hear it on his headphones one day because they were huge Stevie Wonder fans. And, of course, Stevie's made a number of appearances with them over the years. But this hit was a big hit for Take Six when they graduated Oakwood and pushed this out. Turn it up, Miles.
Sad love could open any door. Oh, and I wish we had much more. More love is what we need. What the world needs now. I'm telling you, love is what we need. More love is what we need.
Ain't that the truth? What the world needs now is love. We need more love. Anyway, shout out to Take Six out of Oakwood in Alabama. Our guest in this hour is Dr. Nehemiah Mabery, former NASA engineer, STEM educator. Delighted to have him on this program. We have tried to lay a foundation to give you a sense of the backstory to Dr. Mabery and how he got to NASA and how he got to become a STEM educator. So now we know the backstory, let's press forward in this last 20 minutes of this amazing conversation. So let me start with this question, which I posed at the very beginning of this hour. Is STEM failing people of color? Is STEM failing black students, in particular, Dr. Mabery?
That is a good question. That is a good question. I think one of the ways I look at STEM, Tavis, is first of all, it is a set of tools, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is foremost science, technology, engineering, math. These are tools that we have at our availability to essentially turn ideas to reality.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's the technology you and I are using to broadcast, whether it's the homes and the buildings that we may find ourselves in, the cars that we're driving, STEM are the tools that made them possible. Now, since STEM has been a push, since it has been recognized as a key component to economic competitiveness, not just in terms of our individual statuses, but also as a nation, we have rolled out a number of programs, a number of emphasis, a number of opportunities that, unfortunately, those initiatives can fail our community. Mm-hmm. And here's how I would say they can fail our community. They can fail our community when they are focused on essentially providing more to those who are already inclined. And so, in other words, if I want to make sure that people who come to my program can be people that I both go on to Ivy League schools or go on to excel at high levels, I'm probably going to go to schools and launch initiatives that already have people that will likely go to those schools whether or not they come through my program. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
However, if a program, as I know, there are many, have the desire to impact, that changes the direction of where we market, where we try to engage, and also how we design the curriculum of those STEM programs. Mm-hmm. Meaning we want to encourage and increase the number of black engineers and scientists who can excel academically, succeed professionally, and positively impact the community. When that mindset shift of okay, I don't want to just simply give more to already have, but I want to increase and represent for those of us in our community that are already underrepresented. Mm-hmm. That's where I think we have a great thing that we should invest in.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Is STEM, and I've talked about this many times in my career, but I don't think I've ever asked this question, and you're the appropriate person to ask it of, Dr. Mabery. Is STEM, the STEM education, that is the STEM education for black kids in public school versus private school any different?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it really, I would say yes. I would say yes to an extent, and I would say that it has a lot to do with the latitude in how it's administered. Mm-hmm. And we hear this not just in STEM, but in terms of standardized testing in various subjects, right? When there is a press of uniformity of you must present robotics, and they must be able to have a robotic design that does X, right? And that scenario and that context that is presented in is one that perhaps one side of the population is a lot more familiar with, but another side of the population has never really been exposed to. If we're talking about power, for instance, and we're talking about, solar panels, and we start to talk about solar panels in a way that people who may have seen it in their neighborhood or people who may have come across someone who is invested in it to some degree, there's a level of familiarity, and the starting point is significantly different than someone who's probably never seen a solar panel in their life, know they don't have anyone in their neighborhood that has solar panels on their roof, know they haven't even come across anyone that has even mentioned it before. And so when you start thinking about the context that STEM education is being presented in, that's when you have the leverage to make it more or less relevant and impactful for our community.
Many years ago, I used to use this phrase in my presentations when I tried to make the point to the audience that black kids are no less gifted, no less talented than any other kids in the world. Certainly white kids.
Absolutely.
Our kids are no less gifted, no less talented than anybody else's kids. But I would make the point that the real rub here is that our kids oftentimes are not exposed. They're not exposed. And I would use the example of that old Kodak film. You take the picture and out it would come, and you'd shake that sucker. Nehemiah's too young to remember this, but you'd push that. You'd take that picture, he'd come out, and you'd shake it for a little bit, and in a few seconds, the picture would become clear. Polaroid, it would become clear. So the point is that our kids are no different than anybody else's kids, no less talented or gifted. They just need to be exposed. And so when we come forward, I want to ask you point blank whether or not you think that one of the reasons why we aren't tracking in the way that we should in these STEM programs is just a lack of exposure. That's what you were just talking about. I want to just get your take on that issue, the exposure question. And then I want to ask, because we're in this era of Donald Trump 2.0, not to make Dr. Mabery political, but Donald Trump, as you know, keeps promising to abolish the Department of Education. I wonder if he did that, what impact that would have on black kids in STEM programs if you just abolish the entire department. More to talk about with Dr. Nehemiah Mabery when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone, and should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Are you an entrepreneur looking to take your business to new heights? KBLA Talk 1580 is your partner in success. Every day, we celebrate and elevate black-owned businesses across our community. Our KBLA SMB Marketplace currently features The Cookie Dip, Badass Bakes, Hair Concoction, Higher Education Accreditation Consulting, LACC Radiology Technology Department, and Malik Books. Your business deserves to be heard. Let KBLA Talk 1580 amplify your voice and connect you with our powerful community of listeners. Email smb@kbla1580.com today. That's smb@kbla1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in.
But we're okay with that.
You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed, as we continue this amazing conversation with Dr. Nehemiah Mabery. I'm honored to have him on this program. Dr. Mabery, what say you about this issue of exposure and whether or not that is in part why we're not tracking in STEM the way we ought?
Absolutely. Exposure is major. I 100% agree with what you said right there before the break. Because here's the thing, even about my story, Tavis. Though I am black, I am privileged in that I was in a city that had a NASA installation. Mm-hmm. I was privileged in that I had a father that at least knew about engineering and was able to introduce it to me. I was privileged in that I had a Dr. Banks as a mentor, but not everyone has that. It could be for various reasons. It could be whether in your culture there's just not that many of us, and I think that's something we deal with being underrepresented as a black community. It also could be geographical. Right? Mm-hmm. Just in your region of the city or in your region of the country, there isn't as much access. So that being said, things like the Department of Education, you mentioned public media earlier. Mm-hmm. I work a lot in media now. I have a company, STEM Media. We believe that things like this need to be funded so that we can expose more of our community that would not be exposed otherwise.
Yeah. So if Donald Trump has his way and keeps his promise to at some point abolish the Department of Education, would that have an impact on black kids in these STEM programs?
I think we'll have an impact not just in STEM programs, but abroad. Sure. Many people, I would even say, more qualified than me can speak on. But for sure, I think going back to that notion of if everything is driven strictly by capitalism, mm-hmm. where can we get the highest return on our investment? Then people are more likely to invest, whether it be after-school program, whether it be a tutoring program. They're going to invest in areas that make more sense for them economically. The good thing is when we have the Department of Education, when we have the National Science Foundation, when we have public media, they are not operating by that same capitalistic model. Mm-hmm. And therefore, we have a greater chance for our community, our black kids, to have these programs, whether or not it turns a dollar for the company put it on. Does that make sense?
Makes great sense. Let me tee up where I want to go in our remaining moments when we come forward. I don't want to shortchange you with 30 seconds to respond right now. But I want to close this conversation with a couple of things, not the least of which is this. I am curious from Dr. Mabery's point of view, given the rich and beautiful work that he does every day in this field, in this lane. I'm curious as to how he believes that schools can go about creating culturally relevant curriculums for STEM education. How do we create culturally relevant curriculums for curricula for STEM education that might consider our kids? That's the question we'll put to Dr. Mabery when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more. all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada. Member FDIC.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Eggs are a staple in our diets, and there's only one egg with more delicious farm fresh taste plus superior nutrition. Eggland's Best. With more vitamins, including 6 times more vitamin D and 10 times more vitamin E, plus 25% less saturated fat than ordinary eggs. Available in so many delicious varieties: classic, cage-free, and organic. Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Dr. Nehemiah Mabery, former NASA engineer, STEM educator, who we are blessed to have on this program in this hour. It's been a rich and wonderful conversation. Dr. Mabery, tell me how schools can create curricula that is culturally relevant for STEM education.
Yeah, Tavis, it's all about the who, the what, the how, and the where. I'll start with the who. I think it is very important to make sure that we place in front of our young people, people that they can relate to. We can highlight Black STEM pioneers. We can show cultural or contemporary role models as it relates to the education, as well as put before them media. While people can be inspired by others they, not in their community, it's nice to see someone that they can relate to that looks like them hosting, presenting information. And so I think it's very important where we can to make sure the who is right. I would say also when it comes to the what, we have to look at things that matter to our young Black kids, right? What are the issues that matter to them? And now I think one of the domains of for STEM education that has a lot of potential is this idea of Afrofuturism. I think the most popular content out there, many people know about Black Panther, which is a good representation of Afrofuturism. The what that we share should be things that matter, sort of reverse engineering that. And then the how has a lot to do with the way that we can incorporate students' everyday experiences and interests into our storytelling, the way that we present and contextualize what we're teaching them. And then where, I would say where also matters, because we want to do it where our students feel seen, valued, and supported in these communities that matter to them. Come to them.
Yeah. Tell me more. I'm looking at my clock. We got about 4 minutes left here. I want to cover a bit more ground here. Tell me specifically about the work that you do every day.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I am a professional engineer, educating entrepreneur. So that's a number of things. I have a license, first of all, as a structural engineer. Currently, I'm involved in inspections and analysis in the area of structural forensics. And this is where you have damages, catastrophes, or any type of damages or loss that can occur to buildings, bridges, things around the country that need to be assessed, need to be analyzed for how much capacity exists in them. This particular career, I left sort of the full-time office work a couple of years ago to do this because it's more flexible to run my company that is known as STEM Media. STEM Media is my company where we produce educational content around STEM that elevates and empowers underrepresented success. So we've been able to produce some CBS TV shows, I've been able to be featured on a number of documentaries as contributors and things of that nature. And even just recently, we had a very creative multi-platform experience where we created an engineering-themed escape room and used it to teach sort of engineering concepts and lessons. And so I do this. Of course, I'm able to lecture. I'm able to go to schools and do keynote speeches that all around educating and empowering STEM students in STEM education, but also a special interest in those in our communities that are underrepresented.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier that we're headed toward the holidays and kids will be off for quite some time. Spending time with their parents is a good opportunity for parents to get in their ear the way your daddy got in your ear. So what say you to parents about finding ways, even fun ways, to introduce their kids to science, et cetera?
You know, in this holiday time, that's a good question. I think you have a lot of time. We're going to be baking cookies and things like that in the house. I'll give you a hot example and a cold example. Maybe a hot example is I love the activity of chocolate welding. All you need is some, maybe some Hershey bars and a bowl of hot water that you can dip it into. And you can introduce sort of the building of structures and houses by simply welding or fusing together melted ends of Hershey bars and seeing who can come up with sort of the coolest house design or what have you there. It's pretty fun.
I love
tasty,
it.
Of course. Traffic gets everywhere. Make sure you can clean up.
Yeah.
And then there's for those who live in colder environments, you can introduce maybe a snowball thrower, catapult, right? We've done a lot of trebuchets and catapult designs in a lot of these classrooms I've done. I think these are just all really cool ways that people can get engaged, again, with what they're interested in. Chocolate, and then also a snowball fight. Who doesn't like to get one of those?
Yeah, I'm taking the chocolate. I'll take the chocolate, man. Any chocolate, I'll take it. Let me close in these last few seconds by saying this has been an amazing hour with you. Your backstory is inspiring. It's empowering. It's uplifting. And I hope that when you get a chance to talk to Dr. Banks and your father, and by the way, I like to call their names. Give me your father's name.
Cecil Mabery Jr.
All right. You tell your father and you tell Dr. Banks that we talked about them today and that we're all empowered by the role they played and have played and are playing in your life. It was a great hour, and I thank you for it. I wish you and your family a happy holidays, Dr. Mabery. Thank you for your time, sir.
Same to yours. Pleasure was all mine.
Thank you, sir. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know from BIN News. Alex Murdaugh is appealing his double murder conviction, seeking a new trial for the 2021 murders of his wife and son. His lawyers argue the jury was prejudiced by irrelevant financial crime. Milk supply tests for bird flu to track the virus's spread. Dr. Peter Hotez notes over